So it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE and see how it's been holding up the last few months. I think it's been, about 3 or 4 months or whatever it is, it'll be in the title. And this is what I will definitely tell you. I think the Galaxy S21 FE was a very good phone that Samsung made. I don't really think it was like the perfect one they've ever made of all time, but coming from the S21 FE, I think it was a decent upgrade. Unfortunately, it did cut off a few things, but I will tell you, in the complete Samsung ecosystem, I think this is a very good device they have, and it's not the most expensive phone that they're selling. It's still kind of expensive for what you're getting, in my opinion. I would probably recommend just buying an S22, but that's the perfect thing. Because the S22 came out a little bit after, this phone is actually, I think, a really decent value in the used market. I would still recommend buying an S22 in the used market, but with this thing, you're still getting an overall really good package in my opinion. Now on the outside, as most of us know, we have a pretty decent panel on the front. It's a 6.4 inch 1080p panel, and it's a 120 Hz panel. That's a really good thing. Now it is bigger than the S21, but smaller than the S21 Plus, so it's like right in that middle ground. I think overall it's a pretty decent setup for a display, and I actually do like the flat sides that you're getting on this thing too. And although it has a plastic back, it doesn't really feel like a super cheap phone. And as I mentioned, for a few years now since the S20 FE, I think plastic backs on these phones are not a really big deal, but I do think for them being on the S21 was a very, very bad look. Luckily for us, with the S21 FE having a plastic one, it's not really that big of a deal in my opinion. And I think for a majority of people who've bought this phone so far, all the reviews, all the comparisons, me buying this phone and comparing it against all the other ones for the most part, it's been a pretty good time. And I think this phone has held up fairly well in that standpoint. Now, I do want to hit on the camera setup. I think for a lot of people, they are still very happy with this setup as well. Now, we don't have 8K capability. We still have 4K at 60 on the back and the front. And I don't really think this camera's gotten any better since the first day it came out. But as I've mentioned before, I think with a camera setup like this, it still puts this phone in a really good spot. It may not be like the best performing camera of all time, but I still think it's a pretty decent setup. And I really don't think anybody really cares about it anymore. But I think it's a pretty decent camera. And one thing that was very interesting, the S22, Samsung did mention they went ahead and, they teamed up with Snapchat and other manufacturers. I think a lot of those camera features will end up being ported over to the S21 FE and some other, cameras for the most part on older phones as well. But I do think on the outside and the camera setup, it's definitely still a thumbs up for sure. Another cool thing is the color schemes. There are tons of different colors you can choose from for the S21 FE, and I think that's still a really cool thing. I bought a really boring white color. That's just kind of the one that looks the best on the camera, but you have a few different colors you can choose from as well, which is always really cool to see. Now, one thing that's been very interesting was the battery life. I really don't understand why they put a 4,000 mAh battery on this phone. I truly do feel like they could have probably put a little bit of a bigger size battery in this specific device because it is a bigger phone than a lot of other ones. The S22, I believe, has a bigger size battery than this thing as well, or it's like fairly close. And that's one thing I don't really understand, but again, it is what it is. What are you going to do about it? I think with this phone though, with the battery life, it's been fairly good, but this takes us to the performance. And this phone has pretty much the same specifications inside as the Galaxy S21. And this has been something that has been very, very interesting to me. I think the S21 FE still performs like a very good device. This is still pretty much giving you the same experience as a flagship. And personally, when I've used a phone like this, this has been something where I've had, just really good performance with almost every single phone with an S21, chipset. And this includes the 888 chipset as well. And that has been something that I really do like. So may not be like the best performing phone anymore because the H1 chipset, in my opinion, has been really good, but I still think this is pretty good as well too. So in terms of everything, I think the S21 FE is still in a very, very good spot. It may not be like the best phone of all time, but I think it's still a pretty decent, phone in their lineup, and it kind of makes sense why they have it. There's been devices Samsung's made where I'm like, I don't know why they still have this phone lingering around, and I feel like with this one, it's not, I don't really get that vibe, maybe the S22 FE, maybe I'll be like, okay, maybe it's too much of these FE lineup, but I think they have I think they mean something to the lineup. I don't really think these are the no-brainers like, oh, go pick them up like the Pixel 6a or maybe like an iPhone 11, but I think it's still a good, decent phone if you want to buy it, but still a used S22 is probably a better deal in my opinion. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.